Welcome to another AI pattern recognition deep dive.
The place where we tackle the most complex technologies shaping our future and break them down into practical, mind-blowing insights. Today, we are peering deep inside the black box, that opaque, immensely powerful decision engine driving modern artificial intelligence.
That's right. Our mission today is, I'd say, an urgent one. Explainable AI, or XAI.
And this isn't some, optional software upgrade.
Not at all. Our sources make it crystal clear that XAI represents a non-negotiable paradigm shift. It's about transforming these powerful and, let's be honest, often scary, opaque systems into transparent, human auditable frameworks. We have a full examination today, and we're going to cover everything from the technical architecture, how it actually works, to the profound, almost existential implications of why AI must explain itself to function safely in our civilization.
Okay, so let's unpack the core tension right at the start.
Yeah.
Our sources call it the black box paradox, and it really defines the problem that XAI has to solve.
Exactly. The paradox is fundamentally about scale versus comprehension. As AI models have become exponentially more powerful, we're talking about systems with billions of parameters performing trillions of operations, they become less and less understandable.
Even to the engineers who built them, right?
Especially to the engineers who built them, let alone the average person affected by their decisions. We gain this incredible capability models that can predict protein folding or diagnose cancer, but we lose all comprehension of how the outcome was reached.
So we build this immense power, and then we sort of surrender control because the mechanism is completely opaque.
Precisely. XAI is the bridge designed to close that comprehension gap.
So if the AI makes a prediction, XAI doesn't just, confirm it. It has to articulate its entire reasoning process. Is that right?
Yes, it moves so far beyond a simple thumbs up or thumbs down. XAI provides 4 specific types of transparency that are, they're essential for accountability, particularly in these high-stakes decisions. First, XAI tells us why a specific decision was made. This is the high-level justification. Second, it explains how the model arrived at that conclusion. So the detailed, step-by-step pathway it navigated through the data.
And that distinction between why and how feels crucial. Why might be, you are a high risk, but how is the specific calculation and all the data points that fed into that risk score?
Absolutely. The third transparency point is revealing which features or data points influence the outcome the most. Did the AI focus on your income, your ZIP code, your recent search history? We need that visibility.
We have to know.
And fourth, and this is perhaps the most critical part for human decision makers, XAI tells us, when uncertainty exists in the model's predictions, if the AI is only, say, 70% sure of a diagnosis, we need to know that confidence metric.
Sure.
And XAI provides that metric alongside the reasoning, allowing for a human override if needed.
That necessity cannot be overstated. I mean, we are long past the point where these systems are just optimizing our streaming queues.
Oh, long past.
Our sources highlight that current AI systems are making decisions that determine the course of human lives and, even the fate of our collective civilization.
They are deeply embedded in our critical infrastructure. Think about medical diagnoses and treatment plans. If a misclassification or a missed anomaly happens, it can be fatal. A doctor needs to trust the recommendation, but also be able to audit it.
And finance, too.
Oh, definitely. Look at financial loan approvals and credit scoring. For decades, opaque systems have perpetuated these severe, often invisible biases. They deepen economic inequality by systematically denying access to capital. XAI has to make that bias visible.
And it stretches so far beyond that. We're talking about criminal justice risk assessments, deciding whether a person should be paroled or remain incarcerated based on an algorithm that may or may not be looking at fair, relevant data.
We also see the immediacy in autonomous vehicle navigation. In a critical split-second decision like swerving to avoid a hazard, the system has to be auditable. It has to be explainable after the fact to determine liability and improve safety.
And on the macro scale, what about things like climate change?
It's essential. XAI is critical for global challenges like climate change predictions and in everyday scenarios like employment hiring decisions. If an AI decides who gets a job, you, as the candidate, deserve an explanation rooted in transparent, non-discriminatory reasoning.
Okay, let's pull back the hood now. We need to talk mechanics. How does this transparent AI actually work? Because you can't just, bolt a microphone onto a deep neural network and ask it to explain its reasoning.
Hey, no you can't. This requires intentional architectural design from the ground up.
So this is where we get into the XAI architecture. Our sources define it using, what, 4 pillars?
That's right, 4 pillars. And these pillars dictate how interpretability is built, or in some cases, retrofitted onto any AI system.
We can't just fix a black box after the fact, can we? Transparency has to be there from the beginning.
That's absolutely right. And that leads us to the first pillar, data explainability. This is foundational. It's all about understanding the input data, which features and the quality of that data is influencing the AI's final decisions.
So, garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. An XAI system needs to confirm that a decision wasn't just based on some spurious correlation it found buried in noisy or biased data. If the data quality is low, the XAI explanation flags that uncertainty immediately. The second pillar, building on that, is model explainability. This is really the architectural ideal, designing transparent models right from the inception phase.
So instead of always reaching for the most complex tool in the box.
Right. An explainability engineer might opt for inherently interpretable models like a decision tree or a generalized additive model whenever possible. They ensure the structure itself is transparent from day one.
But that begs the immediate question that I think every listener is asking. What about the billions of complex black box models that are already out there running our critical infrastructure, whether it's the banking system or air traffic control? We can't just scrap them. How do we ethically manage that legacy fleet?
That's a crucial question, and it brings us to the third pillar, post hoc explainability. These are sophisticated techniques used to explain existing, highly accurate but opaque black box models after they have already been trained.
So this is the retrofit.
It's the crucial retrofit phase. It doesn't open the box entirely, but it wraps an interpretable layer around it to approximate the decision process. This pillar is essential for regulatory compliance in all those existing systems. And the final, often overlooked pillar is the assessment of explanations. It's not enough for the AI to just spit out a justification.
You have to check its work.
You have to. We need to validate the quality, the fidelity, and the usefulness of the explanations it generates. Is the explanation actually an honest representation of what the model was thinking, or is it just a convincing story generated by a secondary system that might not perfectly mirror the original? This pillar is all about trust verification.
I find that fascinating. The AI needs an audit trail for its own explanation. That leads us perfectly into how XAI organizes its, for lack of a better word, thought process.
Yes.
Our sources detail 5 distinct cognitive layers of pattern recognition. This moves from the most microscopic data point all the way to highest order philosophical abstraction. This is how the transparent AI actually thinks.
We start at the most basic level. Level 1, feature detection. This is the elemental recognition phase. The AI is simply identifying raw foundational data elements.
Like pixels in an image.
Exactly. An edge in an image, a specific frequency range in a financial trading signal, or a threshold in a patient's blood pressure reading. It's atomic data recognition. For example, in medical imaging, it might detect specific microcalcification textures in tissue that indicate early signs of breast cancer.
Okay, so it sees the pieces. Then what?
Next is level 2, relationship mapping, or correlational understanding. Here, the AI connects those basic features it found in level 1 to find meaningful statistical correlations and potentially causal relationships. It's looking for if X happens, then Y follows.
You mean example?
An application here is linking specific diet patterns, like a high sugar intake detected by level 1, to an elevated diabetes risk score. It's connecting the dots.
And as we move into level 3, we introduce the concept of time and change.
That's level 3, temporal dynamics, which is sequential prediction. The AI tracks changes in those relationships over time to predict future states. It's not just if X, then Y, but more like if X increases over 3 months, then the probability of Y increases by 20% next month.
So looking at trends.
Exactly. A clear example is monitoring heart rate variability, the tiny, moment-to-moment fluctuations in time between heartbeats, to predict a cardiac event or detect overtraining in an athlete. It analyzes the deviation from their baseline pattern over time. Level 4 is context integration or multimodal synthesis, and this is a significant leap. The AI combines multiple, diverse, level 3 temporal data streams for a truly holistic understanding.
So it's not just looking at one thing anymore.
Right. Instead of just looking at diet from level 2 or heart rate from level 3, it integrates your genetics, your lifestyle data, your sleep patterns, and even environmental exposure simultaneously. This gives a much, much richer disease prediction that accounts for all these external factors.
Okay, I'm still trying to see the distinction between that level 4 synthesis and level 5, this meta pattern idea.
Yeah.
Level 4 combines everything we know about the patient right now. What does level 5 do that's fundamentally different?
That's a perfect question because level 5 meta pattern recognition is higher order abstraction. It is recursive learning. It's identifying patterns within the way the AI is making its level 4 correlations over time.
So it's a pattern of patterns.
A pattern of patterns. Level 4 synthesizes current information. Level 5 recognizes a trend in the synthesis process itself. The sources cite a great illustration for this. Level 4 might correlate a patient's chronic symptoms with their high stress levels. Okay, useful.
Mm-hmm.
But level 5, the meta pattern recognition, goes further and recognizes that the patient's symptom patterns consistently follow seasonal cycles. Say, the symptoms peak every single spring, regardless of their current stress levels.
So it suggests a higher order trigger.
Precisely. Maybe environmental allergens or some kind of time-based epigenetic expression that you would never see in a snapshot level 4 analysis. It's the AI achieving a level of intuitive insight that, it mirrors a human specialist with decades of experience.
That makes the distinction crystal clear. Level 5 is recognizing the invisible hand that's guiding the other patterns. So now that we understand these layers of comprehension, let's talk about specific real-world tools. What are the key XAI techniques that are making these explanations happen today in 2025?
The field is dominated by a few key techniques, starting with the mathematically rigorous one, which is SHAP, or Shapely Additive Explanations.
SHA.
SHAP is model agnostic and relies on cooperative game theory, which is a concept where players, in this case the input features, cooperate to achieve an outcome, the prediction. SHAP assigns a mathematically fair and rigorous importance score to each one of those input features.
How does it do that?
By measuring how much that feature contributed to the final prediction across all possible feature combinations. It's incredibly thorough.
And the classic use case for that, which would require absolute transparency.
The quintessential use case is explaining a loan denial under regulatory scrutiny. SAP could report with full mathematical justification that the denial was based on your income being weighted 40%, your credit history 35%, and your current debt ratio 25%.
And that level of detail is vital for compliance and for fighting bias.
It is. It makes the influence of every single input transparent. Then there is LIME, Local Interpretable Model Agnostic Explanations, where Shapey provides a rigorous global explanation of feature importance across the whole dataset. LIME focuses intensely on the local neighborhood around a single specific prediction.
How does lying work locally?
Well, LIME essentially creates a temporary, simple, interpretable model, like a linear regression, something easy for humans to understand, to approximate the complex black box model, but only for the area near the specific data point in question.
So it's like a magnifying glass.
It's a perfect analogy. It treats the black box as an oracle, querying it repeatedly with slightly modified inputs to see how the output changes. This provides a very specific, localized answer. For instance, it could highlight exactly which 2 words in a social media post led to it being flagged as toxic.
But wait, if Lyme is only local, how can we trust that its simple approximation holds up across the whole, complex high-dimensional system? That sounds like a potential point of what you called explanation fidelity risk.
That's a fair challenge, and it's a key limitation being worked on. LIME is excellent for quick, actionable, localized insights. But yes, relying solely on LIME for a global understanding is risky because the simple model only captures that local behavior.
So you need to use it with other tools.
Absolutely. This is why that 4th pillar assessment of explanations is so important. You have to use LIME alongside other more global methods like SHA or inherently interpretable models to verify consistency and avoid building false confidence.
Okay, so if SAT tells you why the loan was denied, what tool is designed specifically to tell you how to change the outcome? Something that makes the explanation inherently actionable.
That's where counterfactual explanations really shine. Their function is explicitly to show you, the user, the smallest necessary change required to achieve a different outcome. The explanation is inherently constructive.
So it gives you a path forward.
Exactly. If you're denied a loan, the counterfactual explanation is, your loan would be approved if your income increased by $5,000, or if your outstanding revolving credit was reduced by 15%. It gives you control over your trajectory. And we also heavily rely on attention mechanisms, particularly in large language models and computer vision. These mechanisms automatically provide inherent interpretability by showing which input parts the model focused on when it made a decision.
It's like seeing what the AI is looking at.
It's exactly like watching the AI's eyes move across the data. In a language translation task, the attention mechanism will highlight the influential source words that correspond to each translated word, providing an audit trail that aligns with how humans process information.
Okay, let's take those mechanics, those 5 cognitive layers and those powerful tools, and see how XAI applies that pattern recognition across the entire spectrum of human existence. Let's start with the most personal and potentially life-saving domain: health and medicine.
Health is an immediate and critical domain for XAI. The stakes are life or death, and the volume of complex patient data is just overwhelming for any single human. In diagnostic and predictive health, XAI is already transforming systems. When IBM Watson Health makes a drug interaction recommendation, for instance, XAI requires it to explain that recommendation by citing the specific medical literature, the patient data, and the clinical trials that informed its conclusion.
So it moved it out of the realm of magic and into evidence-based recommendation.
Exactly, and the practical reality for doctors on the floor is direct auditing. For breast cancer detection, XAI doesn't just deliver a positive alert. It uses techniques like feature visualization to show exactly which specific mammogram regions or tissue textures triggered that alert. Similarly, in sepsis prediction, early warning systems explain precisely which vital sign deviations, temperature rise, high lactate, increased heart rate, and the specific combination of those deviations indicate a high risk,
Which allows a nurse to intervene minutes faster.
potentially saving a life.
But let's talk truly personalized medicine, driven by the individual patterns XAI can decode, especially through preventive health and wearables.
Wearables are moving far beyond simple data logging and into AI explanation. For example, your smart ring might notice patterns suggesting suboptimal health and say, your heart rate variability decreased 15% this week.
Okay.
But then it gives the explanation. Analysis. This is due to insufficient deep sleep, less than 90 minutes nightly, and increased screen time after 10 p.m. Recommendation. A 1-hour digital sunset could restore your HRV by 5%. It diagnoses the root cause based on combined data patterns across all 5 cognitive layers.
That's incredible. And we also see XAI applied to the very sensitive domain of mental health.
Yes. Apps use XAI to detect patterns of depression and anxiety based on speech tonality, typing speed, and social interaction shifts. The AI explains the detected mood pattern changes, but the sources emphasize that privacy-preserving XAI is absolutely essential here.
We need the explanation of how the pattern was found, without compromising the raw, sensitive data of the individual's mental state.
Exactly. That's a very fine line to walk.
Let's dive even deeper into the biology. XAI is decoding, starting with the staggeringly complex world of the microbiome health connection.
This is truly personalized health optimization. We're recognizing the over 1,000 bacterial species in your gut are not just passengers. A personalized nutrition AI might perform level 4 context integration on your diet log, your symptom reports, and your biome sequencing.
Explain what?
And explain, for example, your recent difficulty digesting dairy is due to a deficiency in the lactobacillus strain in your gut.
Wait, so we're moving beyond just generic advice like avoid dairy. Could you give us more detail on how XAI links that bacterial deficiency to a concrete outcome like mood or energy?
Certainly. The link is profoundly chemical. The XAI might link persistent depression symptoms to a microbiome-mediated issue, specifically low lactobacillus in the gut profile. The explanation it gives is that certain gut bacteria are crucial for producing serotonin precursors.
It's a feel-good neurotransmitter.
Right, so low numbers of this particular strain lead to reduced serotonin availability in your body. The XAI then provides an actionable, explained recommendation: increase specific prebiotic fibers, or use targeted supplements to address the root bacterial deficiency, with a goal of improving mood by 30% within 4 weeks.
That is just astonishing, linking gut bacteria directly to mood and providing a pathway to fix it based on your personal data. What about our genetics?
XAI is tackling epigenetic patterns, which is the recognition of how our environment and our behavior can turn genes on or off.
So not changing the code, but changing how it's read.
Exactly. An application could analyze 6 months of your lifestyle logs alongside your genetic markers and explain your MTHFR gene shows increased methylation patterns indicating poor folate metabolism. This is an epigenetic modification, not an inherited mutation. It was caused by consistently low B vitamin intake and high measured oxidative stress.
And the crucial point there is that XAI identifies this as a pattern that is reversible.
That's the empowering part. It can be reversed through lifestyle changes, like supplementing with methylated B12. It gives you immense personal agency over your genetic expression.
And XAI is even decoding hormonal cycles across all genders, which affects everything from energy levels to peak performance and cognitive capacity.
Correct. XAI recognizes these predictable hormonal patterns through level 5 meta-pattern recognition. For menstruating individuals, XAI might analyze 6 months of sleep, activity, and cognitive performance data and explain.
Let me guess, why you feel exhausted one week and amazing the next.
Precisely. It might say, your reported energy levels and focus are 40% lower this week. Analysis. This corresponds to the late luteal phase, days 18-25 of your cycle, where elevated progesterone causes fatigue. Recommendation. Schedule high-demand analytical work during days 7-14 and transition to low-intensity planning tasks this week.
And this applies equally to male hormonal patterns.
It does. An XAI application might tell a client. Analysis of your strength training and hormone tracking shows testosterone levels are reliably 30% lower after 6 p.m. Schedule strength training in the morning for maximum muscle synthesis, increasing potential strength gains by 15% based on your specific pattern.
So it allows us to work with our specific biology rather than against some generalized advice.
That's the goal. Finally, in medicine, XAI is tackling the ultimate pattern, aging. Longevity AI can now explain why your biological age might exceed your chronological age. For instance, using telomere length and cellular senescence markers, the AI might explain, your biological age is 48, exceeding your chronological age of 42. This 6-year acceleration is due to poor sleep quality, which accelerates aging by 4 years, high consumption of processed food for 2 years, and a sedentary lifestyle for 1 year.
So it makes the abstract concept of biological decline concrete and actionable, offering clear targets for intervention.
Exactly.
Moving from the personal to the educational. XAI is fundamentally changing how we learn by identifying and explaining our individual cognitive limits and our structural knowledge gaps.
Education has always struggled with the limitations of the student. XAI provides surgical precision, starting with knowledge gap identification. An intelligent tutoring system can use level 2 relationship mapping to explain you're consistently struggling with quadratic equations because you failed to master factoring in the prerequisite module. That is the structural deficiency that must be addressed before you can proceed.
So it's not punitive. It's treating learning less like filling a bucket and more like repairing a structural deficiency in the knowledge foundation with a very targeted, explainable intervention.
Precisely. And XAI also handles cognitive load management. The sources note the well-established limitation of human working memory capacity. We can only hold and manipulate, 4 ± 2 items simultaneously.
Right.
XAI can detect when that specific individual capacity is being exceeded. Imagine this explanation in a complex engineering course. Learning plateau detected in fluid dynamics. Analysis. You attempted to integrate 7 new concepts simultaneously, exceeding your measured capacity of 4 items. Recommendation. Break the lesson into 2 distinct modules, reducing cognitive load by 43%.
It prevents burnout and ensures maximal retention.
It does, and it can optimize memory itself through spaced repetition optimization.
This goes beyond just generic flashcard scheduling.
Far beyond. It customizes review schedules based on an individual's measured memory decay patterns. If an AI measures that you're forgetting new historical dates twice as fast as the average learner, it adjusts your review schedule from 3 days down to 2 days, matching your specific forgetting curve.
And the results?
This tailored approach, based on observable patterns, can lead to a staggering 50-100% improvement in long-term retention compared to generalized study methods.
Wow.
And this is scaling up. XAI is being used for curriculum optimization at the institutional level. Educational bodies are beginning to design entire multi-year curricula by explaining why certain topic orderings maximize retention and minimize cognitive strain across a population. Widespread institutional adoption of this is expected within 3 to 7 years.
Okay, now let's pivot to the world of money. In economics and finance, XAI is being driven both by the need for performance and, critically, by global regulation, particularly the mandates coming out of the EU AI Act.
That's right. The pressure for transparency there is intense. Fair lending systems must be built on XAI to explain loan decisions clearly and defensibly. This moves the conversation out of a computer-said-no situation and into a transparent audit.
So the transparency has to be clear enough to eliminate the black box as an excuse for bias.
It has to. A loan approval or denial decision must be explained with transparent calculations, made possible through SHAP analysis. For instance, Loan approved based on income-to-debt ratio, which was a 40% contribution to the score, employment history stability at 30%, savings history at 20%, and credit utilization at 10%.
By making the calculation and the weighted inputs visible, XAI ensures that any bias, whether historical or accidental, is measurable and correctable.
And that satisfies the regulatory mandates. Beyond individual decisions, though, we're seeing powerful macroeconomic applications in recession forecasting.
Okay.
XAI uses level 5 meta pattern recognition to identify complex, recursive economic patterns. It can predict recession probability, say 62% within the next 18 months, and then back that up with clear, explained indicators.
And what are those specific indicators the sources are citing?
The XAI cites simultaneous indicators, the classic inverting yield curve, that's the strongest level 3 temporal signal. Then consumer debt hitting record highs, maybe 140% of disposable income, and leading corporate indicators showing profit margins compressing due to rising input costs.
And crucially, this leads to actionable, explained personal recommendations.
Right. If a recession is predicted, the XAI recommendation is increase your cash reserves immediately, 6-12 months of expenses is recommended, and delay any non-essential capital expenditures.
XAI is also tackling the deeply ingrained structural patterns of economic inequality. Policy analysis tools are explaining how historical and current policy choices lead to persistent wealth gaps.
The sources cite a really harrowing example of XAI modeling what they call a poverty trap example. It was an individual financial trajectory analysis using level 4 context integration that showed a 78% probability of a person remaining in poverty in 10 years without any intervention.
Due to what?
Due entirely to their current debt-to-savings ratios and the regional employment patterns.
That is astonishing. And it's moving beyond diagnosis to prescribing concrete, quantified solutions to break that cycle. That's data-driven policy designed to address root causes, not just symptoms. What were those solutions?
The XAI provided 3 prioritized explained interventions to break the cycle. 1. Establish a $1,000 emergency fund, explaining the 65% probability reduction in eviction risk that comes with it. 2. Consolidate high-interest debt, which the XAI showed would reduce annual interest payments by $1,800. And 3. Engage in skill training identified as high demand in the local market, raising expected salary by 25%.
It shifts policy from theoretical assistance to surgical intervention.
It does.
Let's look at personal finance, specifically consumer behavior, which is so largely driven by subconscious patterns and our own vulnerabilities.
XAI recognizes that humans are not always rational actors. It analyzes impulse buying and decision fatigue patterns. A personal spending analysis, using level 2 relationship mapping, might reveal something like, you spent $347 on impulse purchases this month.
Okay, that's the what?
Then the pattern. 83% occurred between 9 and 11 p.m. This is your peak decision fatigue time. And 62% were triggered immediately after viewing specific social media ad types. The counterfactual explanation then provides an immediate path to correction. Implement a 24-hour rule for purchases over $50 and proactively block shopping sites during your peak fatigue hours.
So this is AI acting as a conscious intervention against our own psychological vulnerabilities, providing the explanation necessary to get control over our subconscious financial habits.
Exactly.
Moving to the largest scale, politics, governance, and social patterns. Here, XAI's ability to handle societal complexity allows us to analyze legislative ideas before they become law.
Policy impact forecasting is transforming the legislative process. It's moving debate from pure ideological argument to evidence-based analysis through transparent XAI modeling.
Give me an example of that.
Consider the analysis of a proposed minimum wage increase to $20 per hour. The XAI explains the dual outcome. The model predicts a job loss of 2-4% in low-margin service sectors. That's the negative impact. But simultaneously, it predicts a poverty reduction of 8-12% for the 15 million affected workers, the positive impact.
It doesn't stop there.
No. Crucially, the XAI also includes the caveat that this wage threshold could accelerate automation investment by 15-20% within 3 years. It provides a full cascade effect analysis. This transparency allows policymakers to make trade-offs with their eyes open.
On a societal level, XAI is confronting the corrosive effect of polarization patterns by revealing the structure of our own filter bubbles.
It uses advanced pattern recognition to diagnose how individuals become entrenched in these echo chambers. A personal news consumption analysis might show your consumption is 89% from sources defined as left-leaning. You've been exposed to only 3 right-leaning perspectives in the last 6 months. Your polarization risk score is 7.2 out of 10.
Wow. And does it provide an actionable counter pattern here?
It does, and it's a fascinating one. It explains that studies show intentionally consuming just 20% opposing viewpoints, even if you dislike them, significantly reduces polarization by 35%. The XAI is basically urging you to acknowledge your own blind spots.
And the fight against misinformation requires XAI to explain why content is untrustworthy, not just slap a false label on it.
Absolutely. XAI flags content and provides a hierarchical justification for the flagging. For example, this claim was flagged because Level 1, source credibility. The original source is a partisan blog with a credibility score of 2 out of 10 in 14 independent studies. Level 2, fact contradiction. The claim directly contradicts 3 peer-reviewed research papers on vaccine efficacy. And Level 3, rhetorical analysis. The content uses emotionally manipulative language, specifically fear appeals and US versus them framing.
That's a full breakdown.
Full breakdown. It also analyzes individual sharing behavior, recommending a 24-hour waiting rule for sharing controversial claims, which studies show reduces misinformation spread across social networks by up to 70%. It intercepts that impulse pattern.
Finally, before we hit the future workforce, let's look at the immense patterns XAI is decoding regarding our planetary health, environment, and climate. This is where human perception of time and scale fails us most often.
This is perhaps the most critical domain where human pattern recognition is fundamentally inadequate. XAI provides the necessary clarity by quantifying these complex, slow-moving environmental changes.
So with climate models,
Climate models now use XAI to explain a predicted 2°C warming by 2050 based on transparent contribution factors. It breaks down the severity. Current emission trajectories account for 45% of the warming, deforestation rates for 25%, reduced ocean heat absorption for 20%, and positive feedback loops for 10%. This breakdown is vital for regional impact explanations and actionable adaptation strategies. It moves the conversation past just broad crisis messaging.
let's focus on the local environment, specifically biodiversity patterns, which often collapse silently out of sight.
XAI can explain local environmental collapse in painful, detailed fractions. The example of the bee population decline is a perfect illustration of combining multimodal data streams at level 4.
How so?
An XAI system analyzes weather data, land use maps, and agricultural spray patterns and explains. The bee population in your region is down 40% on a 3-year trend. This is due to pesticide use contributing 45%, habitat loss at 30%, climate shifts at 15%, and a specific localized disease at 10%.
That suggests actions.
It does. It might suggest planting native wildflowers to potentially increase the local population by 60% by restoring specific loft habitat patterns. And XAI is also essential for life-saving natural disaster prediction. Early warning systems explain their alerts with reasoning, which builds necessary trust. An XAI system doesn't just issue a flash flood alert.
It tells you why.
It explains. Earthquake risk is elevated 300% this week. Reason. Increased tremor frequency detected along the specific San Gabriel fault line, combined with high tectonic strain accumulation measured by ground sensors, matching historical level 3 temporal patterns that preceded the 1994 event.
It makes the invisible visible and the abstract quantifiable, which really is the key to motivating collective action.
And it connects global crises to personal behavior. XAI can calculate your personal carbon footprint, say 18 tons of CO2 per year, and then explain the reduction path, breaking down how transitioning to an electric vehicle saves 4.6 tons and a plant-based diet saves 2.1 tons. It connects your personal choices back to that 45% emission factor we mentioned earlier.
Transitioning now, we have to discuss the direct implications for careers and technological development. Because XAI isn't just a technology, it's a massive job creation engine for the next decade.
Indeed, we're seeing entirely new professions dedicated purely to making AI transparent and accountable. Give us the breakdown of these emerging XAI professions, including those estimated 2025 salaries.
I certainly will. The most direct role, the architect of transparency, is the explainability engineer. Their core responsibility is to build XAI systems from the ground up and integrate interpretability directly into the AI's core structure. Demand for this role is extremely high across financial, defense, and health sectors.
And their compensation must reflect that criticality.
It does. The salary range for explainability engineers currently sits between $120,000 and $220,000 USD in major tech hubs. That puts it squarely in the top tier of tech professions and really validates just how crucial regulators and industry leaders view this role.
Then you need the ethical gatekeepers, the XAI auditor. They verify that AI systems are providing accurate, useful and unbiased explanations, and this is largely driven by regulatory compliance requirements like the EU AI Act.
And their salary range is substantial, between $95,000 and $180,000.
It sounds like we also need people who can translate all that complex math and rigorous auditing into something a human user, like a doctor or a lawyer, can actually utilize without getting completely overwhelmed.
That is the essential role of the AI explanation designer. This profession requires a rare mix of UX/UI design skills and cognitive psychology. They design the human interface that presents complex mathematical reasoning in a human understandable, hierarchical way, preventing that cognitive load problem we discussed earlier.
And their demand is high, with a salary range of $85,000 to $160,000.
A truly critical and growing role is the clinical AI interpreter. As XAI penetrates critical healthcare diagnostics, these specialists help doctors understand, interpret, and trust complex medical XAI recommendations. They ensure effective human oversight without cognitive overload.
Demand for them must be critical.
It is, with salaries often ranging from $110,000 to $200,000. And it's not just new jobs. XAI is fundamentally transforming existing careers.
Absolutely. Data scientists can no longer just build the most accurate models. Their KPI now includes building explainable models. Lawyers are now arguing cases involving algorithmic decisions using XAI evidence. And doctors must now synthesize their own expertise with an AI diagnostic recommendation and the explanation provided. The doctor becomes the ultimate auditor of the system.
Let's get futuristic. The ultimate goal of AI research is artificial general intelligence, or AGI. Why is XAI not just helpful for AGI development, but absolutely critical for its safety and its very existence?
XAI is the prerequisite for safe AGI. It's that simple. Without transparency, AGI is an existential risk. Our sources are explicit about this. AGI systems must explain their reasoning for 5 non-negotiable reasons linked to safety and, frankly, human survival.
Okay, what's the first one?
First is safety. If an AGI is making unexplained decisions in safety-critical systems, like managing a global energy grid or military assets, it poses an existential danger if we cannot understand or predict its failure mode. Second is alignment. We have to verify that the AGI's final goals and its decision-making pathways align with fundamental human values. If we can't observe the reasoning through XAI, we can't verify the alignment with our collective ethics.
You can't trust what you can't see.
Exactly. Third is control. Explainability enables humans to maintain necessary oversight. If we don't understand why the AGI did something, we lose the ability to veto its actions or constrain its emergent behavior. Fourth is trust. Society simply will not, and frankly should not, adopt AGI without a profound and transparent understanding of its reasoning. Trust is built entirely on transparency.
And fifth,
Debugging. AGI systems will be so mind-bogglingly complex that identifying and correcting errors or bugs will absolutely require a transparent audit trail of the reasoning process. Without XAI, debugging AGI would be mathematically impossible.
that brings us to the comparison between human pattern recognition and AGI pattern recognition, which highlights why this merger of intelligence is so absolutely necessary.
The contrast shows where we humans are severely limited. In speed, human processing takes milliseconds to hours. AGI with XAI operates in microseconds. In scope, our human focus is limited by attention and sensory input. AGI offers unlimited parallel processing across vast data sets.
And bias is the big one.
It is. In terms of bias, human bias is unconscious, it's entrenched, and it's very hard to identify. AGI bias, if XAI is implemented robustly, is measurable and correctable because the data input influence is transparently weighted by SHAP-like techniques.
And the explanations themselves.
Human explanation is often intuitive, imprecise, it relies on narrative. AGI explanation is mathematically rigorous and detailed based on auditable features.
So given these differences, what are the current thoughts on timelines for AGI with robust XAI integration?
The sources outline an optimistic scenario of 5–10 years. That assumes continued exponential hardware progress and a massive computational investment specifically into XAI.
And the realistic scenario?
The realistic scenario places AGI development with robust XAI integration at 15–25 years. And that factors in the inherent difficulties of the theoretical breakthroughs we still need for full explainability, and, of course, the inevitable regulatory hurdles.
What futuristic tools will we use to interact with this explainable future, particularly in critical fields like medicine or engineering?
We're moving toward ambient and even direct neural explanations. Within 3–7 years for consumer adoption, we expect augmented reality XAI assistance.
What does that look like?
Imagine a doctor performing surgery, seeing the patient's real-time vital signs and history overlaid onto a spatial hologram, with the XAI highlighting relevant patterns in real time. Or a structural engineer seeing a bridge's fatigue points with the XAI overlaying the risk calculation explanation right onto their field of view.
And further out.
Further out, maybe 10, 20 years, we anticipate brain-computer interface XAI. This would provide direct neural explanations, bypassing language entirely. We could see explainable cognitive enhancement, where the BCI provides feedback on your decision-making patterns directly to your brain's executive function.
Wow. And in the physical world.
In the physical world, XAI-powered robots will explain their actions and intentions. This is crucial for collaborative environments. An elder care robot might pause and explain, "I am recommending a doctor visit because your average morning blood pressure reading has exceeded your baseline by 15% for 3 consecutive days," providing transparent intent and reasoning.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. How reliable is XAI today, given these high-stakes applications, and what happens when it tackles our biggest, most complex problems? Let's address the current limitations head-on.
The first, most persistent limitation is the accuracy-interpretability trade-off. It's a classic engineering problem. The models that achieve the highest accuracy, the deepest, most complex neural networks, are often the least inherently interpretable.
So you have to choose between performance and explainability.
To some extent, yes. While progress is being made with hybrid models that can maintain 90–95% accuracy while achieving high interpretability, that tension remains a core technical challenge.
And then there's the risk we touched on earlier, the inherent danger that the explanation itself is a lie, or at least a misrepresentation.
That is the significant ethical and practical concern of explanation fidelity risk. Post hoc explanations, the ones generated after training, might not perfectly capture the model's true internal workings. This can lead to these convincing but ultimately misleading explanations that build false confidence in a flawed system.
So what's the mitigation?
The only mitigation is rigorous, independent explanation validation techniques, which is exactly why that XAI auditor role is so critical. We also face the very practical issue of cognitive load. Overly detailed, mathematically rigorous explanations, while technically accurate, will completely overwhelm the average user.
Right, a doctor doesn't need to see the raw tensor calculations.
No. This is why the best practice involves hierarchical explanations. You start with a simple level 1 why explanation, and then you allow the user to drill down into the level 5 technical detail only if their expertise permits.
Our sources give us some clear benchmarks for reliability and trust levels in 2025 across different domains.
They do. Financial services XAI has achieved a high trust level, about 90–97% reliability. And that's primarily due to strict regulatory mandates that forced early, robust investment in transparency. Medical diagnosis XAI sits at a moderate trust level, 85–95% reliability. It's reliable enough for doctors to use as a powerful second opinion, but human oversight remains absolutely critical.
But the major problem area, where bias is a significant concern, is clearly the judicial system.
That's right. Criminal justice XAI has the lowest trust level, only 70–85% reliability. This is due to significant controversy over fairness and deep concerns about historical data bias perpetuating discriminatory outcomes in risk assessments.
So major improvements are needed there.
Major improvements in bias detection, mitigation, and auditability are required before you can have full adoption and public trust.
The potential for XAI to correct itself in real time feels like the ultimate safety feature.
Yeah.
How do these self-correcting systems work? Is the system running dual XAI models simultaneously, a primary predictor and an explanation model, to allow for that instantaneous audit and correction?
That is precisely the mechanism. A dynamic XAI system runs a primary prediction model, and then a shadow explanation model continuously tracks the decision boundary. When new data arrives that conflicts with the primary prediction, a level 4 context integration challenge, the shadow model immediately audits and forces a reanalysis explaining the change.
Give me the medical scenario.
Okay. The initial AI suggests pneumonia. Then, new lab results arrive, say a new X-ray and an elevated D-dimer blood marker. The AI reanalyzes. Initial diagnosis revised to pulmonary embolism, explains why. D-dimer elevated, that's the new data input, and the chest pain characteristics, previously weighted low, now match the level 2 pattern for pulmonary embolism given the blood work.
So it not only corrects the mistake, but flags the exact data point that triggered the correction.
Yes. And for the autonomous vehicle example, which is pure microsecond safety,
Right.
the same principle applies. A vehicle initially classifies an object as a traffic cone, call that prediction A, but the secondary sensor data, specifically LiDAR and thermal imaging, reveal movement and heat. That's new data. The Shadow XAI model forces an immediate reclassification. Object reclassified as child with traffic cone. Reason: LiDAR detected sustained movement at ground level. Thermal signature indicates human presence. Override prediction A, vehicle now braking hard. The self-correction and the explanation happen almost instantaneously.
Saving lives through transparent error correction.
Yes.
Now we have to confront the ultimate existential question raised by our sources. Why invest in building this supremely intelligent, explainable system if human pattern recognition throughout history shows such severe self-destructive tendencies?
This is the ultimate paradox. XAI, in its global analysis, identifies what we could call the human destruction pattern. It recognizes how civilizations rise and fall, how environmental degradation has led to a documented 68% decline in global wildlife since 1970, and how we are currently consuming the Earth's regenerative capacity 1.7 times faster than it can recover.
So the AI's analysis basically questions our motivation.
It does. The core question it raises is, human pattern recognition shows self-destructive tendencies regarding long-term resource management and collective action. Why invest $1 trillion into advanced AI if civilization may collapse anyway due to these persistent self-destructive human patterns?
Like XAI must also recognize a counter-pattern, right? Humanity is not purely self-destructive.
It absolutely recognizes the necessary counter-pattern, human resilience and adaptation. XAI sees problem-solving acceleration agriculture took 10,000 years to reach ubiquity. The internet took only 30 years. It recognizes collective action successes, like the Montreal Protocol successfully resolving the ozone hole.
Okay, so what's the crucial insight here?
The crucial insight is that we humans struggle with pattern recognition related to 4 core challenges. Scale: things are too big for us to grasp. Time: they're too slow. That's the boiling frog syndrome. Complexity: too many interacting variables. And bias: our innate cognitive shortcuts.
And XAI is built specifically to address those 4 failures of human pattern recognition.
Precisely. XAI offers the necessary capabilities that augment our collective intelligence. It can create early warning systems that detect civilization-threatening patterns decades in advance. It offers solution modeling to simulate millions of intervention scenarios for climate response or economic stability. And it provides the de-biasing needed to show us our unconscious blind spots in real time.
So the necessity argument is powerful.
It is. Even if XAI is imperfect, operating with 70–95% reliability, it is still demonstrably superior to relying on human-only decision-making for complex global problems where we have historically failed, like climate change response or nuclear weapons control.
The conclusion remains: XAI plus human wisdom is greater than either alone.
That's the hope.
This has been an incredible deep dive. We've moved from defining XAI's core architectural pillars to seeing how it explains everything from your individual gut health patterns to global climate trajectory to why you purchase impulse items at 10 p.m.
And XAI's ultimate purpose is not just technological advancement. It is to provide the transparent, actionable data and explanations necessary for collective decision-making, giving us the visibility we so desperately need to course-correct the destructive patterns of human history.
Our sources posit that for XAI to successfully guide civilization past these existential threats, 3 critical things must happen. 1, the consequences of our actions must be visible and immediate, which XAI achieves through real-time explanation.
Right.
2, alternative pathways must be clear, which XAI shows through counterfactual solution modeling. And 3, collective will must mobilize, which XAI is designed to help coordinate by providing transparent, unifying information.
And achieving this XAI-enhanced civilization hinges on solving 3 critical success factors. The immense investment needed, something like $500 billion to $1 trillion in XAI R&D by 2040. The urgent challenge of achieving universal AI literacy, which requires training for 1 to 2 billion people, and the necessity of preventing AI benefit inequality by making global access a priority.
Which leaves us with a final, provocative thought for you, the listener. Given the high stakes and the predicted reliance on XAI for everything from your personal health diagnosis to global policy recommendations, what role will you play, as an auditor, a designer, or simply a well-informed human, in ensuring the XAI explanations we receive are truthful, not just persuasive? That difference, the fidelity and the rigor of the explanation, is the line between transparency and dangerous algorithmic control.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon.
This is DigitView.